Man, these last 2 days, this has been a damn good time to be a superhero fan. Real quick, if you haven't already, go ahead and like, share, subscribe to the channel, ring that bell below anytime we have something. You know the deal. You'll be the first to know. Oh man, it's good to be a nerd and a geek right now. You're getting all the good shit you want. You're getting this. You have Justice League, the Snyder Cut the other day. You're gonna have Godzilla coming down the following week. It's just this is the prime time for all of us us nerds and us geeks. So let's talk about Falcon the Winter Soldier. Right off the bat, I can tell you that the first episode of Falcon the Winter Soldier, called New World Order, is it's sort of a palate cleanser for whatever we got with WandaVision. I think you definitely have to get into your brain that you have to separate these two. These are very different shows. This is more of a traditional, by the books sort of MCU show. Doesn't make it bad. I know that sounds like it's generic, but as otherworldly and weird and just out of the box that WandaVision is, this one's more straightforward. Because of that, this can come off sometimes as probably being what would be considered a boring episode or a slow episode. I don't quite agree with that. I do have a bit of an issue with the episode, but I don't think it's a boring or slow episode. So this episode starts with a massive action sequence. We're getting to see Falcon do some stuff with those wings and his quote unquote power set. It's not an actual power being, but his power set, his move set, we're getting to see it in its full glory. It's pretty impressive to see. It's amazing. It's some of the stuff that we never really got to spend time getting an all out Falcon action sequence, and we get that here, and it's delightful. After that sequence, the show slows down, comes to a very slow and dramatic halt. I don't mind that, but I know it can rub some people sort of the wrong way. But what happens is, and this is why I love these MCU Disney Plus shows, is that it takes time to give us character moments that we never would have had with either of these characters in film. Sam gets to get a lot of screen time, and we sort of just get backstory and stuff about his family, and we get sort of that with Bucky as well. Let's start off with Sam. Sam, after the big action sequence, starts off with this. He's got the shield that he was given by Cap. It's his. It's in his possession, but he doesn't feel like he's the rightful person to have it. And so he goes and does this speech in front of everybody to say that, hey, yo, we do need new heroes. We do need heroes to replace this symbol of what Captain America is and what Steve Rogers was. But I'm not it, and nor do I think anyone is. So we're going to put this shield and we're going to put it on display as a memorial or a beacon of memory for Steve. And so that's the plan. Rhodey is in the audience here, and he sees this, and I kind of have the same idea. I'm not quite sure this is where they're going to go with it, if they're going to get too involved into the race aspect of this. But I think it sort of comes up in the comics. But I think it felt like he was giving up this because the government sort of has asked him to. But it feels like the black man is giving up his spot, and we all know. It just feels like, yeah, you might not should do this because you know what they're going to do in the interim. They're just going to put another white face in this, and you had a chance to sort of make this your own and do your own thing. Are you sure you want to give that? So Rhodey sort of has a talk with him. Doesn't lead to him when he still sticks by his guns, and he's like, I don't need to have this. So Sam then goes home and has a little heart to heart with his sister, and remember, he's been one of the ones that was in the blip. He's been gone for 5 years, so. His family is having issues with a house. They're trying to put it up for sale. And he's like, hold on. Before you do all that, I got you. It's me. I can go get you some credit. You know how Sam's bravado. He's super cocky. He's like, yo, I got this. We're going to have this done. But this is where this episode gets fascinating to me. And does with some of the real world intangible things that we would not have gotten anywhere else. And this is why I sort of counter the idea of it being boring. Sam goes to the bank, and he's easily recognized as being one of the Avengers. And we hear that the bank will not give him a line of credit, even though we know that he's good for it. He works for the government. He's an Avenger. But he's been gone for 5 years. And when you're in the blip for 5 years, there's no job history for 5 years. There's no credit history for 5 years. There's no type of money. You just did not exist. So it's hard to give people loans or lines of credit if you haven't been here. You're like, well, shit, that I never really thought about that aspect. We've seen other aspects of the blip. We've seen the funny side from Spider-Man. We've seen this more horrific side where you just get dropped in and you don't know what the heck is happening in WandaVision. And here we're getting sort of the ramifications of what happens when you try to go on living your life and how it's not as easy if there's just 5 years of your life where you just weren't around. But the other part of that scene that's just fascinating is that we learn that Sam and none of the Avengers received money for anything that they did. They were basically working pro bono or for good merit. I know some people have had some issues with that, and they're like, yo, why didn't Stark pay him? I don't think it's on Stark to pay the Avengers. He was financing the tower, he was financing this, but there was a moment where the Avengers were funded and managed by the government. So if anyone should be paying, it should be the government, but I'm not sure why they weren't. But clearly there was no money being passed off to Sam or any of the other Avengers. So now you have to sort of go live this real world life. When you're not being the person that's heralded and being the superhero, you're in real life kind of like, how am I going to make ends meet when I'm not doing this? And it's a wild thing to play with. In addition to the ramifications of also people of color getting lines of credit and loans, you add on to that, it's just like, oh, this is a fascinating thing we're going to get into. Bucky starts off with a pretty decent action sequence with his lead in, but it's all, as we've seen him, he's in full Winter Soldier regalia. He's got the long hair, he's in it. It's clear it's a nightmare. He's got PTSD from all of these people that he's killed. He's starting to get some of those memories back, and he's starting to remember some of the things that he did. And it does not sit well with him. He goes to therapy, does not work. He has friends or people that he attaches to. I am of the belief that the friend that he's attached to, he actually had something to do with the death of his son. We don't really get that played, but that's how it sort of comes off. He tries to go on a date, doesn't really work. You gotta think about it. This man hasn't dated anyone in about 100 many years. And he said that the last time that he ever felt any sort of peace or calm or just a washing over him was the little bit of time that he spent in Wakanda. But since then, it's been like this on edge type of thing. So then the show basically ends with two key pieces. Torres, who's a friend of Sam, who helped him out during that first mission. We spent a little bit of time right afterwards to sort of build a camaraderie between the two of them. He is following a lead on his group called the Flag Smashers. They are a group who believe that life was better when half the country was gone, when those folks in the blip were around. So they are staging a coup sort of outside of a place, and they kind of are causing a little mayhem and recklessness, and it looks like they are stealing things. Torres sort of gets in the way and gets a foot to the face and gets pretty injured by someone who is powered. Don't know how powered, but he is in some way powered. But he has all of that footage on tape because he's recording it. He's like a YouTuber or a blogger in some way. So he's keeping all that tracking. And Sam sort of sees it. And he's like, all right, cool. I'll come see you and we'll talk it out. But while he's doing that, something comes on the television. The thing that we all sort of knew was going to happen, and I kind of was like, damn it, Sam, you should have held on to that shield. The government gives this shield to some random white dude. Gives it to John Walker, who ends up being in comics U.S. agent, but also a version of Captain America. I don't know how long that's going to play out. I don't know if he's not going to be the big bad or anything, because we do know that Baron Zemo is a part of this series, and we only got 5 episodes after this. But what I do think is this is what's going to bring Sam and Bucky together. You're like, wait, what? Yeah, that's right. The entire first episode of the show called Falcon and the Winter Soldier does not have Falcon with the Winter Soldier. It is two of them dealing with their lives and kind of repairing themselves or acquiescing to life post-blip after everything that happened with the Avengers. It's a lot of dealing with PTSD. Which is fine, which is great, and I love it, but I would have sort of probably preferred them to at least spend some bit of a time together, considering we're only going to get 5 episodes of this afterwards. Why it does not bother me, one of my favorite films in the MCU is Iron Man 3, which deals a lot with the post-traumatic stress of doing the stuff that these guys have to do day in and day out. If you give me an entire series that sort of deals with that and gets to the ramifications of what that feels like, how that weight sits on you, I'm good with that too. I do know that we're going to get some action. I do know that Sharon Carter is going to come into play. I know that Baron Zemo is going to come into play. So we're going to get some more things that are put on the board. This is just a good starting ground to say, cool. There's a threat happening with these Flag Smashers, though I don't think that they're the main villains, or they could be tied to Baron. Who knows? But I think the main thing is to say both of these men are going through it without their best friend here, and maybe, just maybe, they need to have each other, and this impetus of this faux Captain America may be the one that does it, but they need to come together to be friends for each other while that void is gone. All in all, I like the episode. It's not the best thing that I've seen from the MCU. It's a good start off point, and I definitely want to see more. I'm being more lenient because I want to see the entirety of the series before I'm like, oh, this isn't good. This isn't good. Once you get to the third episode range, you sort of know more what you got. And I know a lot of people jumped off the wagon for WandaVision. I don't think they'll do that for this because it more is in line with what they're used to. But I can see how they might think it's a little bit slow. What did you guys think about episode 1, New World Order of Falcon and the Winter Soldier? Go ahead and leave your comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast with the same name that's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that plays podcasts. We're going to be doing a little, like we did with WandaVision, a retrospective of buddy cop films and buddy movies through the eyes of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We also have a sister podcast called You Can't Do That Anymore. We talk about classic films like Back to the Future or Gone with the Wind or West Side Story. Look at those films for when they came out and see if some of the things that they did then got away with, if they can do those today through the eyes of 2021. But like always, I got my ticket. You got yours?